I read Alice's Adventures in Wonderland again after 30 years. I read it as a kid and remembered it as a story of a little girl going through all kinds of craziness in a strange world. But reading it now was a whole new experience. I could see so many life lessons hidden in the madness. I even encouraged my kids to read it. They did, and we had some great conversations around it. I would encourage you and your kids to also give it a read. And while they do, take this as an opportunity to pause, think, and reflect on what's going on. Here are 5 events in the story where you can have an interesting discussion about.
In another moment, down went Alice after it, never once considering how in the world she was to get out again. The rabbit hole went straight on like a tunnel for some way, and then dipped suddenly down, so suddenly that Alice had not a moment to think about stopping herself before she found herself falling down a very deep well. Instead of choosing the easier, obvious thing to do, which at that time for her was making a daisy chain, Alice decides to follow the peculiar-looking rabbit. Even while she's falling down the very deep well, she's observing the sides of the walls that are filled with cupboards, bookshelves, maps, and pictures hanging in them. Alice was very curious, and that led her to all her adventures.
Being curious is exciting. When you discover something that piques your interest, don't hold back your curiosity. Find more about it, ask questions, go all the way in, just like Alice went all the way down the very deep well. Curiosity drives the best kind of learning. When you learn something out of curiosity, it's memorable and a lot of fun. Here's a question that you can ask your kids to pause and reflect on. Tell me something exciting that you recently came across and wanted to find more about. When you choose to go down a rabbit hole, you discover new things, you meet new people, even grow as a person. Which brings us to our next interesting event in the book.
The caterpillar and Alice looked at each other for some time in silence. At last, the caterpillar took the hookah out of its mouth and addressed her in a languid, sleepy voice. "Who are you?" said the caterpillar. This was not an encouraging opening for a conversation. Alice replied, rather shyly, I hardly know, sir, just at present. At least I know who I was when I got up this morning, but I think I must have changed several times since then." When the caterpillar asks Alice, "Who are you?" Alice doesn't know what to say. She had been shrunk, grown into a giant. She had been through so many different sizes and had so many experiences, like swimming in her own pool of tears with ducks and birds, that by now she was having a tough time explaining what kind of person she was turning into.
Even grown-ups have a tough time answering, "Who are you?" We are constantly changing with different life experiences. You're not exactly the same person you were years, months, or even weeks ago, and that's perfectly fine. You're changing every day, and that's okay. Here's a question that you can ask your kids to pause and reflect on.
White Rabbit is always panicking, Hatter never makes any sense, Duchess is always aggressive, and Cheshire Cat is always cryptic. It's all crazy people for Alice, and at one point she tells the Cheshire Cat that she does not want to be among mad people. "But I don't want to go among mad people," Alice remarked. "Oh, you can't help that," said the cat. "We're all mad here. I'm mad, you're mad." Although Alice finds everyone weird, she still tries to understand everyone in their crazy ways, and even makes friends along the way.
We should respect others for their unique quirks. Trying to understand and appreciate these differences can lead to more meaningful connections and better friendships. Here's one question that you can ask your kids. Think of one weird thing about yourself and about 2 of your closest friends.
"Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here?" "That depends a good deal on where you want to get to," said the cat. "I don't much care where," said Alice. "Then it doesn't matter which way you go," said the cat. "So long as I get somewhere," Alice added as an explanation. "Oh, you're sure to do that," said the cat, "if you only walk long enough." This conversation with the Cheshire Cat teaches us an important lesson about direction and purpose. If you don't know where you want to go, any path will take you there. You'll end up somewhere, but it might not be where you want to be.
Goals can keep changing as you grow and as you learn more, and that's perfectly fine. But having a direction helps you take control of your life and ensures you don't end up somewhere random. A question that you can ask your kids is, what's something you want to achieve this year, and what can you do about it this week? Alice meets the Red Queen, who's always threatening to chop off someone's head. Off with his head, off with her head. She's always ordering her soldiers. It's intimidating, but Alice learns to stand her ground. Some people are just jerks. Bullies are bullies, whether it's a kid that teases you at school or a boss that's always criticizing you. Like Alice, you gotta stand up for yourself, no matter how scary or intimidating that person might seem. Don't let bullies push you around. A question that you can ask your kids is, have you ever had to stand up to a bully? How did it feel? Pausing sometimes during reading and taking the time to think is a very good reading habit. It's not just about understanding the story, it's also about learning to think better. Encourage your little thinkers to read more, think more, and learn better.